Hey friends, over 60% of you are listening to me right now on an Apple product. iPhone, iPad, iTunes. I need your help. The truth is, Apple will make this podcast more discoverable to new listeners the more reviews it has. So I'm here asking you to take a moment and leave a review. If you've gained any value from this podcast, the greatest thing you can do for it, besides spreading the word and telling friends, is leaving a review. It's real simple. If you're on your phone, head over to my podcast page within the Apple Podcast app and leave a review. Or if you're on a computer, you can head over to my podcast page within the iTunes app. That's it. That's all I ask. And if you have other podcasts that you love, do them a favor and do the same for them. It'll make their day. Now let's get this podcast started already.
How do you find out about Lewis's Barbecue?
How did I find out about Lewis's Barbecue?
Yeah.
My brother sitting here beside me told me that when I came to town, I had to eat it. And I think what he did was he might have shared with me the Instagram account. Hey,
Right.
look at this. And
that's kind of your bag. I mean, that's what you do, Instagram.
I'm on Instagram very heavily, and I know that Instagram is great for people who are restaurant owners, people who are foodies. I think it's better than Yelp. And my brother told me about Lewis, and I knew that I had to come here when I got to town. And now it's my first stop, or my first restaurant that we go to when we get to town in here in Charleston is straight to Lewis.
Yeah, this place is phenomenal. So for those of you folks that are listening, I'm talking with Todd Bergin, aka Todd.live on Instagram, on Twitter, everywhere. I mean, that's where they get you everywhere. You're on every platform.
Todd.live is where I'm at everywhere.
You told me that when you come to Charleston, because we had this talk, you saw me in Charleston last month. You said, hey, by the way, I'm going to be here around 4th of July. And when you get here, first of all, we need to meet up, but you need to make sure that at some point you need to get to Lewis's Barbecue. And matter of fact, why don't we just go ahead and meet up at Lewis's Barbecue? I'm paraphrasing here, but I believe it was something along those lines. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I came in here and I just had the most amazing barbecue sandwich. Yeah. And I'm not saying that because I'm sitting in their establishment. I'm not saying that because I'm 5 minutes, 10 minutes removed from eating it. And it's like kind of that romance, kind of, what do they call that? The wedding, after the wedding, the honeymoon phase. It's none of that. This is literally one of the best barbecue sandwiches I've ever eaten.
It's insane. It's off the hook. I mean, everything here. I mean, we could have a whole podcast episode about Lewis Barbecue because they have a huge menu. But the macaroni and cheese, the bread or the corn pudding,
yes,
the sausage links. I mean, everything here is off the hook. And I think what's really cool about doing this podcast with you here at Lewis is that we did meet on Instagram.
Yes.
I found this place on Instagram through my brother, and we're meeting here. And we got to enjoy the food before the podcast, and we got to kind of break the ice and hang out and talk about the day's social media events going on. And there's been some pretty heavy ones. We'll save that for another occasion. But there's been a lot going on the internet today, and we got some time to just talk about it before we turn on the microphone and hung out.
Is this crazy to you? I mean, in the sense of, you've been on social media. How long? How many years have you been involved in social media? Were you early on, or were you kind of, oh, here's this thing, let me figure it all out?
Yeah, I set up Facebook in 2007. I thought I was late to the game. I wasn't late to the game.
Yeah.
I was early, but I didn't do anything with it other than family and friends and pictures and things. I really didn't get into digital marketing until about 2015.
Right.
So I had a Twitter account. I had an Instagram account. I had Facebook. I didn't use them for business at all. But 2015 is where that all changed. And I started a business called Divorce the Workforce, where I was going to help people get out of their day jobs.
Right.
And I thought that this would be something that I could kind of get a handle on, but I quickly found that there is no quick fix to getting out of a day job.
No.
And to be expected to be hired as a coach to help somebody do that when it could take 3 years. I mean, there's nobody that's going to pay 3 years of coaching to get them out of a day job. So I started looking at more practical things. And in supporting that business, I got into live video and podcasting.
Yeah.
And since then, I kind of pivoted into teaching people broadcasting, live video podcasting, creating videos, social media, because people need a lot of help with that. And it's one of the pieces of the puzzle of getting out of the day job. So I can still talk about the importance of getting out of the day job and living the entrepreneurial life. And if they hire me, I'm providing them with a piece of that puzzle. They're not looking to me to like solve the whole problem.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I got today. And so I do teach podcasting. I do have clients that I teach podcasting and Instagram. I actually have clients that pay me just to teach them how to use Instagram. We get on the telephone at $200 an hour, and I walk them through the Instagram app, just telling them how to do it.
Holy shit! Okay. How do I get this gig, man?
Well, I need more clients like that. Okay, I don't have a lot of clients like that. In fact, I only have a couple. But I mean, I'm hoping that grows. But with IGTV, I'm kind of pivoting it yet again, and I'm really gonna focus on teaching people. It's kind of a under the umbrella of Instagram video. So you have Instagram newsfeed video. Yep. You have Instagram stories, you have Instagram Live, and you have IGTV. So there's 4 facets of Instagram video right now. Yeah. And I'm pivoting into that. I'm actually starting a new YouTube channel. I just set it up, and I got to do the art and stuff, but I'm just going to start teaching Instagram video and really focusing on Instagram video because I've been doing it for a long time, and I know it. Right. And I know a lot of people out there need help with it. So.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned it. Let's just jump right into it. Instagram TV. When I found out about this, when it was announced, I thought of this thing as a complete game changer. One of our mutual pals, Professor Nez, we did a podcast all about it a couple weeks ago. And so this is a major landmark thing. Now, I've never proclaimed that, in fact, it's going to dethrone YouTube or it's going to do anything to bring YouTube down, but I have been very vocal in the fact that I feel like it's going to be a kick to the teeth for YouTube, and it's going to make them understand and see that there is this new guy in town, and in a couple of years, it's going to be a major player.
Yes.
And so where are you at with it? What's your thoughts on it? And how are you using it in your own personal ecosystem?
Okay, so Instagram TV started like 2 weeks ago, and it was about a week before I left for vacation. So I haven't rolled up my sleeves and dug into it the way I should, right? Because I've been occupied with a wedding and traveling and all that. And
but I bet it's got your brain going.
It does. Yeah. So, so I actually was on the plane when I was on the plane flying from Southern California to South Carolina. I was playing with some apps and creating an intro for my Instagram TV. So what I'm going to do is I'll do something like a little tease. I'll play the intro, and then I'll go into whatever the segment's going to be about. So I have done a little bit of work. I need to create some artwork and some various things, but I do think you're right. Instagram TV is a game changer. It's vertical video, which I don't personally prefer myself.
No, me neither.
Yeah, I like the landscape.
Right.
I think you get more information with the landscape, but the vertical video there's no barrier to entry. Everyone already has a phone. And it's just so Instagram makes it so easy. Where I think Instagram's going to have trouble, and I'm sure this is coming, is in the search.
Yes.
YouTube is known. You have a problem with a toilet, you go to YouTube and see if there's an answer. You want to go to things to do in a certain town, you go to YouTube and look for videos where people have toured there maybe. And you can do that on Instagram too, but people don't think of Instagram for video when they do that. They think of pictures when they do that. Yep. And I think that's going to change.
I want to look up Lewis's barbecue or barbecue in the area, and here's some pictures of some nice looking brisket on a plate.
Instagram's the spot for that. Yes. They beat YouTube in that department. So the video is going to be new. But what I think that YouTube could do very quickly to change the game dramatically, and I think it's coming, is, we've known YouTube now for 12 years, and it's landscape video.
Yes.
And I envision that here in the near future, you're going to have the ability to embed into their website the way you do landscape with portrait mode. And they'll redesign, there'll be a different design of the page slightly, with all the same information, but you'll go on there and there will be an embedded portrait mode video.
Yes.
So that they can compete with Instagram, and they already have the search. They already have that figured out where Instagram doesn't. So I think there's some interesting times coming if YouTube does something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think that my personal preference is landscape, but that doesn't, my personal preference, it means nothing.
Yes. No,
I mean,
you're right.
It means nothing to where this is going.
I fought it kicking and screaming. I'm like, well, and this will show you how long I've been battling it, but I used to tell people, well, you wouldn't watch Breaking Bad or The Walking Dead in portrait mode. Like, it just doesn't seem like the obvious thing to do. But here we are in 2018. And the landscape has gone even further in the portrait mode direction. I think of it, and I almost joke, I probably shouldn't joke, but like when you see one of those fights on World Star Hip Hop or something, you always get kind of mad. You're like, damn, why is it in portrait mode? I'd much rather see these two people kick each other's ass in widescreen.
Right.
And it's kind of a bummer. So I almost feel like I was kicked in or dragged kicking and screaming into this, but I get it now. You know, a couple of years later, I have a fresher perspective on it, and I'm more accepting of portrait mode because this is becoming the new normal as it pertains to online video consumption.
Yes, it is. And you can do both.
Yes.
You know, if you want to get into getting into film and creating awesome film content, movie making, whatever you want to call it, you know, widescreen's going to be where you're going to want to be.
Yeah.
At least for the time being. But I already see a lot of guys like Sean Cannell or Cannell. I never know how to pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
Think Media. He's doing awesome portrait mode videos on his Instagram TV, and he's using DSLRs and he's using 4K and they're getting it into Premiere Pro and editing it.
Yep.
And I'm going to be doing the same thing. I've been teaching myself Premiere Pro. I have a really good Sony camera, and I bought a cage for my Sony camera by a company called Small Rig.
Right.
And this allows me to mount a tripod to it, either in portrait mode or in landscape mode, and I can switch between the two within a minute.
Wow.
And so there's always a tripod connected to my camera. I always have my camera strap connected. Everything is figured out. And I've been, actually today before we did this podcast, I was doing that. I was running around town and getting B-roll. Now I was getting B-roll in widescreen, but I was out there thinking, God, do I need to get B-roll in portrait mode too?
Yeah.
So I have it. I might just, like today might be my widescreen day in and around Charleston, Mount Pleasant, and Sullivan's Island. Tomorrow might be portrait mode. Go do the same thing and just hit all the same spots and do it in portrait mode.
You're almost going to need a whole rack that holds both. I mean, you're going to need with your DSLR, with your iPhone. I mean, you're using an iPhone 10, and I got to tell you, the video on that thing is phenomenal.
It is. It's a lot of fun. That's the thing about being a creator with video. Is the possibilities are endless. It's hard. There's kind of a high barrier of entry, and of course that's what the portrait mode and Instagram TV is reducing, is that barrier of entry. But if you want to get serious about it, you know, you can up your game for, you know, under $1,000.
Right.
I mean, you know, the rig that I have is probably have about 1,500 in it, which is, and my rig's a little bit extreme. But when a rig that's extreme is only $1,500, folks,
yeah, that's not bad.
Anybody can get in this. If this is a dream that you have to create some really cool content and be one of those people that's trying to up the level just a little bit,
right,
and be a little different than all the people with a phone, then you can. On the other hand, you can be the person with the phone, and you can download a few apps, and you can reach out to me at Todd.live if you want a list of apps. But,
he's got a whole damn podcast of how many episodes now is it?
I'm going to be pushing 1,000 podcasts at the end of this year.
Christ.
Between my various podcasts.
Yeah.
I have Grammar School, and I have Entrepreneur Live Video, and they're daily, and they're 5 to 15 minutes a piece, but the apps, I mean, you can make killer video content on your iPhone, on your Android, with the phone itself and the apps that you download. I use like 2 or 3 apps, and I can create content that's way better than somebody who's just recording with their phone and posting it.
Yeah.
You know, just a little bit of dressing up turns it from something simple into something professional looking.
I love when you go on your little rant about remove the watermark. I chuckle a little bit when I
Yeah, I know people that are content creators that don't pay the $2 to buy the app or the $5, and the watermark is there, folks.
Yeah.
Pay whatever the app costs. Support the developer of the app. They're going to make you better apps in the future if they're making money off you. And, you know, anywhere from $5 to $10. I have one app that I'm paying like $70 a year for.
Holy crap.
Year for an app on my phone. But you know what? It's the best video app there is out there.
Yeah.
I like it. And it's pricey, but you know what? Sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and do it.
Now you're the live video guru. Why in 2018 does live video still look so bad?
You know,
is it the equipment? Is it the technology? Is it a little bit of both? I mean, where are we at with this, Todd?
Live video is tricky, and it's a lot of what I did getting started had to do with live video. I fell in love with live video when I met Gary not met. I haven't met him.
Yeah.
When I saw Gary Vaynerchuk when he was promoting the Ask Gary V book.
Yes.
He did what was called the Super 8, and it was 8 hours on 8 platforms. And so he was on like Meerkat and YouTube and Facebook, and he was on 8 platforms for 8 hours talking to people live. And I was homesick with the flu that day, and I thought to myself, my God, this is changing my life.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do this sort of a thing. And so I set out to build a studio that allowed me to go on multiple platforms, and it was done beautifully, even better than Gary was doing it that day. I wanted it to be. I saw Vincenzo Landino, and he had lower thirds, and he had split screen, and he had guests coming on, and they were having fun, and I wanted to do all that. And so I went straight to excellence. I wanted to get straight there and have put out excellent content.
Right.
Now, I'm a rarity. Most people just want to go live.
Sure.
And so they go live with their phone, or they go live on their computer to one platform and not 7 or whatever. And that's fine. And that, in my opinion, is the problem for live video is that to do what I learned to do takes a lot of equipment. It takes a lot of money. It takes the knowing how to do it, how to run it, how to set it up.
Right.
And it's tough. And if you're not doing what I did, then you're stuck doing it on your phone, and it's not going to look as good. Yes. Can you do it and it looks pretty good? Sure. Can you make it look better than most people's? Sure. But most people aren't going to take the time to do that. There's a couple other things that are a problem for live video. People only seem to watch it when you're live.
Yes.
They don't watch replay. You know, if you create a video to show somebody how to fix a toilet and throw it on YouTube, then it's going to get millions of views over the next 10 years.
Exactly.
You know, you made that one piece of content. It took you an hour to put it together, and you're going to have all sorts of views and subscribers from that one video.
Yeah.
Live video is not the same way. I can have a star. I can have Gary Vaynerchuk come on my live video and spend an hour with me, and during the live video, we might have 1,000 people there. And yeah, we might get better replay with Gary Vaynerchuk than we would almost anyone else I know.
Sure.
But even still, a year later, no one's watching that Gary Vaynerchuk live video with me.
Yeah, they don't even remember it.
And no one's looking for it. No one's finding it. So, the live video, a lot of people find it boring. I think that there's certain ways that in certain industries where live video makes sense. I have a client who's in real estate, and she wants me to teach her live video and podcasting. And I said, well, who are you going to interview? She's like, I'll interview the mayor. I'll interview the guy from the parks department. I'll interview a client. I'll interview somebody selling a house. I'll interview an HOA president. We'll talk about things going on in the town. And I thought, you know what? That's kind of a brilliant thing. And that makes sense for you. There will be people in your town that might enjoy that. It'll be a very narrow group of people, but you've defined your niche and you've dialed it right in. But a lot of the live video stuff, it's just very broad and general. It's just people interviewing each other, and it's just like, I don't know, a lot of it, for lack of a better term, is a circle jerk.
Yeah.
It's a big giant circle jerk. And I still like live video. It's where I got started, and I got a lot of people that really like what I do, and so I like to do it, and I like to grow with it. But there's a lot of limitations, and until people pick it up in mass, it's going to be one of those fringe things where IGTV is something that can go straight to everyone's using it.
Well, I think Instagram Live has helped a little bit with that. I've seen you do 1 million different live interviews, guys like Blake Croft and Bree Palmer. We've talked about it. Some great folks that are doing some amazing things with Instagram Live, and I think that really can kind of bridge that gap you're talking about of getting more people on board. I mean, I see just everyday average people that don't consider themselves creators or, put that on their profile, where they're just flicking the live button on and just going with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. Even if the content is not all that great, here are people that are learning the technology, they're understanding it, and in turn will then show other people that may come onto their content what it's all about, and it just becomes a spiral effect.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think there will always be a place for it. I just think that, and you mentioned this, people use Instagram Live, and I love Instagram Live. I think Instagram Live is the most powerful live video platform out there, and it doesn't take advantage of anything that I teach as far as equipment and stuff. I mean, maybe the audio, because I'm kind of known on Instagram in the circles that I run with as the guy with the perfect Instagram audio.
Yes.
But I can't add lower thirds. I can't bring in screenshots from other things and videos and make it more like a show. Instagram Live is a talking head platform.
Yes.
That's all it is talking heads. And when I mentioned a minute ago that people get bored with live video, it's because a lot of it's just talking heads.
Yeah.
What Instagram Live does differently is they allow the broadcaster to bring people in from the audience into the video, and I think that's a really cool feature that you can. It's almost like a call-in.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if you had a national AM radio show like Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity or any of these people that are on talk radio, and they were actually. I mean, they have callers call in and talk, but imagine being able to have viewers come in and you actually put them on the screen and have a conversation with them, and the audience can too. Well, that's Instagram Live.
That's next level. I mean, Todd, I came from a background of blog talk radio in 2007. I thought they were cutting edge at the time. The quality was terrible, but in theory, you could have a telephone and you called up a toll-free number. And when you called in, it said, "You are now live." And that was your live radio broadcast. Then from there, you pull out your laptop or your desktop and you had a switchboard where you could take up to 10 callers at once, and you could say, all right, let's go to area code 843, Charleston, whatever it was, and you could bring these people on. And at that time, that was really groundbreaking stuff. Again, the quality was terrible, but man, the fact that I could jump on, and at that time I was doing wrestling radio, at that time I could jump on and take callers right after a pay-per-view or a television program ended and get live instantaneous feedback. That's phenomenal. But back to your point, Instagram TV, you're bringing it face to face, like we're doing right now, or very similar rather, and you're able to see this person as they're talking. You can pick up context and mood and everything. It's completely next level.
It is. So, folks, any takeaway that you can get from this whole live video, whatever discussion, Instagram is really, I mean, they're just not crushing it. And it's funny. When I first got into digital media, I thought Instagram sucked. And in a lot of ways, I still think it sucks. But on the other hand, it's kind of like when people say that, democracy sucks. They like to talk about the United States. They say, well, democracy sucks, but there's not anything better.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing with Instagram. Instagram kind of sucks in a lot of ways, but there's nothing better. I mean, they're knocking it out of the ballpark
in
every way imaginable. And they're actually changing my opinion from where I used to think it was an app that sucked, and I had to use it anyway grudgingly, to where it's the one I pretty much use exclusively. Like, I don't use Twitter. Like once a week I might check Twitter just so people that mention me, I can give them a shout out.
Yeah.
And I don't like to use Facebook for anything business related. I like to go in there and see what my family and friends are doing, but I don't do anything business wise really on there. That's going to change a little bit. I am starting some Facebook groups around my Instagram video efforts that are coming up in the future. Some private secret type groups that, customers have access to, and we can really roll up our sleeves and get some work done. And I think Facebook will be good for that. But Facebook is become just a beast of annoyances.
So much noise.
It is. It's like Twitter, and you got to pay to play, and you see all sorts of crap you don't want to see. And there's politics there where people don't tend to put their politics on Instagram. People don't. Twitter has politics, but it's a cesspool anyway. But I don't want to see people's politics. I'm very opinionated myself.
Sure.
I don't put my opinion on Insta or on Facebook or anywhere really.
Yeah.
I maybe a random indulgence once in a while.
Right.
But when I just can't help myself. But you go on there and the same people are just every day. It's a new argument. And it's like, Jesus Christ, I've got to get out of this.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to do with it. And Instagram doesn't have that, right?
Well, at the end of the day, and we don't have to go so far into it, but at the end of the day, when you mention like politics, and I see a lot of this too, and I'm not going to go to one side specific or the other, but in a general broad stroke, you have your guy, this guy has their guy. You're never going to out-argue somebody else because they're going to love whoever their guy is or whoever their party is. So literally you are wasting your time because, if the goal is let me troll and argue with a bunch of people all day long, maybe you get off on that. That's great, fine, whatever tickles your fancy, as they say, but you're never going to out-argue or change somebody's mind on anything.
Well, and nor should you want to.
Right.
I mean, look, I would love it if I gave my opinion and people fell in love with it and were enamored with my opinion and changed their mind. I mean, I would, if I were getting those kind of results, I probably would have a talk show actually, and I'd get paid millions of dollars to be on the radio.
Yeah.
If what I said flipped people one way or the other, because whatever side I was endorsing would pay me a lot of money to be out there flipping minds. The thing is you're not flipping minds. If anything you're doing is you're polarizing, you're becoming polarizing, and you're putting distance between yourself and other people, and you don't need that. Like for me, I teach podcasting, I teach live video, I teach Instagram, I teach social media. I teach all sorts of stuff, and it has nothing to do with politics. You could be, liberal, you could be conservative, you could be, communist. Doesn't matter what your background is. If we never talk politics, it's irrelevant, first of all. And I'm going to teach you what you need to know, and you're going to be on your way, and we're going to walk away with a positive experience on both ends. 100%. On the other hand, I could talk about my political preferences, or you could too, and our relationship breaks down for whatever reason, because that's what happens these days. People don't just have conversations, they have breakdowns.
Yes.
And so just avoid it. Like I said, I have a slight indulgence from time to time. We all do. But be mindful that whenever you do that, you're being polarizing, and there's just no need for it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to say your piece. I get it. And I don't begrudge anybody of that. But, I see people out there, you do too, that it's every day, and it's just, why do it?
I would encourage those people, spend your time calling into radio shows talking about your particular side or topic, or start your own podcast and become a talking head of that. I think that's the better arena for that. Or if, God forbid, start an IGTV channel and center yourself around the niche, if you're the bourgeois, as you like to say, or the niche, and start a group of those folks on Instagram and rally each other up and have fun at it. But I like what you said, if I could circle back about, talking about Twitter and Facebook, and Instagram is my full-time place at this point now. I mean, yes, I have a presence in the other spots. It's not a very big presence, but that's also a product of I don't spend a lot of time on those areas. As you mentioned, Facebook's so noisy. Twitter is just, as you said, a cesspool. There's really not a lot going on, but if you remember a couple of years ago, it really seemed like these platforms were a lot more active, whereas now the shift is Instagram. And I think that goes more back to just a general kind of statement of every couple of years you have this one thing that becomes really big. This was for Snapchat for a while. And I think Instagram is kind of that hot place. It's the hot girl or hot guy at the bar that you want to talk to. But I wonder, what is that shelf life? I like what Blake Croft says, and I've had him on this podcast. I've been on his. You've been on his. Talks about you need your own website, because if all this stuff goes away tomorrow, you need your own website. And I wonder what kind of shelf life Instagram has. Is it more evergreen because it's primarily photos? What is your take on Instagram as far as how long you think it's going to be around?
I haven't been doing social enough to, but all I know is this, that the landscape always changes.
Yes.
It always shifts. I mean, Facebook it has a lot of the problems it has because they want to monetize every single thing you do on there.
Yes.
And the algorithm is such a bitch to fight, and you can't get around it. And like if you have a Facebook business page, people who like your page, who choose to follow your page and choose to be notified of things on your page, still don't see everything, no matter how much they tune it, because Facebook is going to somehow fix it so that if you're not paying, you're not going to reach even the people that demand to see your stuff.
Right.
Instagram doesn't have any of that right now. I mean, there is an algorithm there, but it's not as pay to play. Facebook could easily, and Facebook, of course, owns Instagram for those of you who don't know, but Facebook could easily start really turning the screws on businesses and content creators on Instagram to where we're expected to pay like we are on Facebook, and that will change Instagram in a heartbeat. Right now, it's like wild, wild west. You can do whatever you want there.
Yep.
There is an algorithm that you have to fight. There's ways to fight it organically without paying, by commenting and by posting often, and by commenting on your own stuff and choosing certain times of day to post. There's all sorts of things that you can do to game the algorithm to ensure that your content gets seen by the most people. But again, it's almost like a completely free platform, and that's what makes it so great right now. You have all these video choices. I mean, what other platform has the picture stream that's as popular and is concentrated? Facebook has pictures, but it's not concentrated in one place. Twitter has pictures, but you don't go on Twitter and see this giant grid of pictures, or you scroll and you see one picture after the other of all these people you follow, and you can see it really, really quickly.
Yep.
You see all this text between pictures, and so Instagram has the news feed with all the pictures, and it's beautiful, and people love to scroll that. They have the live TV where you can go on, and your whole audience, and folks, if you don't know this already, when you go live with somebody on Instagram and you invite them into your broadcast, not only is your your audience notified of the broadcast, but theirs is too. And you have an opportunity for all sorts of people who haven't met, like, let's say I have Gary Cantrell, and he's come on my Instagram Live before, and we did a podcast.
Yep.
So Gary's audience is introduced, the people that choose to come in or watch it in replay, they're introduced to me. They have an opportunity to meet me. And if I'm putting on a good show and I'm talking and people like the sound of me, I might get some follows out of that. People are always asking, how do I get follows? This is a great way to get followers. And on the flip side, when Gary comes into my broadcast, Gary's being introduced to my crowd. And it's even a bigger endorsement for those who know what's going on, because people know that when I bring people into my broadcasts on Instagram, I'm bringing in good people.
Yes.
Gary's crowd, they just see that he's on someone else's, so they don't know me. I could be anybody. People know that was, and the same thing when Gary invites people to come in his broadcast, they know, okay, I'm following Gary, I trust Gary. Gary's brought somebody on who's noteworthy. I'm going to take a look.
Yes.
So it's even better to be a guest on someone else's show than it is to host. But either way you're doing it, you're introducing yourself and you're introducing somebody else to audiences in real time, with conversation, with what you said, with, the face gestures and tone of your voice. And, these are all sorts of things that people pick up on subconsciously while they're watching. And they're like, man, I really like this guy. I really like this girl. And you get new follows. So I'm a big person on Instagram Live, endorser of Instagram Live. Instagram Stories, I think, is hot. People have been saying that Instagram TV is going to kill Instagram Stories. No way. No chance of that.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Instagram Stories are huge, and so no other platform has feed with pictures and video, Instagram or Stories section, live video section, and now the TV section. It's insane all the stuff you can do in one place for free.
Yes.
I mean, it's huge. It's revolutionizing everything.
And I do think that Instagram TV is going to help stories a lot when people learn the power of it. And I mean this in the sense of, I see people like on their stories, they might have a rant, or in the weight loss, they may be sharing a recipe, and you look at their story up top and it's like 30 little dots, right?
Right.
This is better suited for Instagram TV. I just did an IGTV video about this not so long ago, saying, utilize the power that you now have. You don't have to swipe out and do the video every 15 seconds, because a lot of people are not savvy. They don't know about cut story and things like that, right? So you don't have to swipe out and finish your thought. You could do one continuous video and post that into IGTV, and then use your story. Now you have swipe up for IGTV. Swipe on up, view my IGTV, and by the way, maybe I have something that I want you to go an external link. Well, now I can post an external link. It's clickable right in IGTV. So they're offering up a lot of things that are super attractive to make people want to go into IGTV. They just have to figure out the power and how to use it.
Yeah, it is. IGTV is going to make a lot of people figure out Instagram and vertical video in general. And as they figure out Instagram TV, it's just natural that they're going to. Put it this way: the better you get at IGTV, the better you're going to get at Stories and Live and all this other stuff within the Instagram app. You're gonna learn a lot of stuff, and I'm actually going to be teaching this because I'm finding that a lot of my clients don't even know how to use it, like the basics of Instagram.
Yes,
it's
geotagging, tagging,
it's amazing to me how little people know about this, and it's wide open, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I think that whatever your business is, whatever your message is, if you could be an artist, you could have a restaurant, you could be, you're on a journey. You've got your mission of personal improvement. Whatever you're using it for, there's no better platform right now, period. And if you're on the sidelines and you're thinking about this, I know every audience has their people.
Sure.
Every audience has their people that are thinking about this every day, and they're looking at what Todd's doing, or they're looking at what Gary's doing, or they're looking at what Blake Croft is doing, or Chris Strubb, or Bree Palmer, you name any of my friends, and they're thinking, man, they're really knocking it out of the ballpark. One of these days I'm going to get started. You got to get started now.
Yes.
I mean, it is wild, wild west on Instagram. It's been around for a while, but they're bringing new features on so quick that if you roll up your sleeves and start learning it and making it a mission, you're going to be one of the best people on there in a matter of a couple months. I mean,
hands down.
Because you look and see what people are doing and you're intimidated or whatever, but a lot of people aren't that sophisticated with it, and they're putting out stuff that looks sophisticated.
Yeah.
So a little bit of dedication and you can be killing it.
Well, and talking about how you say on your podcast, earning the scroll.
Earning the scroll.
Let's talk about, what it takes to really put together a good feed, the kind of mindset of what you need. And obviously when I ask this, I'm baiting in the sense of I want people to go to your podcast. I want people to listen to all these great podcasts that you put out, but give us kind of the couple of sentence version of, what it is, what it means to build a nice feed to, as you say, earn the scroll.
Whatever content that you're creating, you've got to think of ways to bring people back. You've got to look at your content and think, okay, is this entertaining? Is it going to make somebody laugh? Is it going to make somebody cry? I mean, you could be fighting cancer, and you could share that story if you felt like opening up, and you will have legions of people who have dealt with it themselves, have family members who have dealt with it. They understand. They're going to feel for you. They're going to give you support. They're going to be interested in your journey. Maybe you've got shirts that are like Stay Strong or bracelets. You got people out there in the community that can wear and support what you're doing. But no matter what you're doing, you have to have a story.
Yes.
Happiness, crying. Maybe it's a mix of both, or maybe you're educating people. You're maybe like me. I teach people tech. I teach people how to do stuff. But you've got to have a reason for people to come back, and you've got to find a way to get that story out there, be compelling, and be consistent. Consistency is one of the biggest things, and I'm the king of inconsistency. I know this. This is look at. We all have our problems in social and all that. A lot of people, it's learning the tech, but almost all of us have a consistency issue, and we all want to be more consistent and put out more content. But the content has to be good. It has to be compelling. You have to be a good storyteller, and your feed is all about that. Every picture that you create, you need to look at it and think, would I enjoy seeing this on someone else's feed?
Yeah.
Whenever you finish a live video, or whenever you finish a video and post it, or even before you post it, would I enjoy seeing this, or would I scroll through it?
Yes.
And if the answer is I would scroll through it, then I don't care if you spent 3 hours screwing around with it. Dump it. Don't post it up.
No, I agree with you.
And you don't have to be that judgmental of your content at all times. And believe me, a lot of your content, I mean, you can take a pic. We're here in Lewis Barbecue in Charleston, South Carolina, and a lot of people are going to scroll past a few video slides of a guy cutting meat.
Yes.
But a lot of people aren't going to scroll past it. So your content doesn't have to. You don't have to look at it as, will everyone love it? You just have to look at it like, is it worthy? Would I like it? If I don't, you have to. You're not. I feel like I can
speak to your niche, in other words, as well, because that is ultimately what it is. It's like I go through this struggle every time I post something that may not be weight loss related, but at the end of the day, and I realize and I respect that a lot of people that follow me are in that world. But at the same time, if I don't post stuff that's true to my life and true to my real life interest, then what the hell am I doing?
Exactly.
I'm living a phony life at that point.
And the thing, too, is you don't want to be so critical that one of my other sayings, and I say it a lot in my podcast, is fluff sells.
Yeah.
Fluff, F-L-U-F-F sells, okay? I teach tech. I teach Instagram. I teach how to build studios and podcasting. A lot of mine is tech-oriented. But what I've learned, and I learned this on Snapchat, is fluff sells. And I had this one little shtick that I did on Snapchat where every time, and I was building my live studio when I was on Snapchat, and I had all this stuff coming in from Amazon every single day, and I had all these packing bubbles, and so I started videoing me stomping on these packing bubbles, and at first people would just kind of laugh and make comments, and then they'd make comments about how I'm wearing sandals with socks on, like that you're not supposed to do that, and that became part of the shtick, was like, here's this 47-year-old geek stomping on bubbles with sandals with socks on. And what I found is that people really liked the content. I got a lot of feedback, and people would start doing videos of themselves, and they would say, hey, Todd, I just got a box from Amazon. I was thinking about you. And then they would flip the camera, and they would record themselves in their socks with sandals stomping on bubbles. And so what did stomping on bubbles have to do with selling tech and coaching and helping people out, figure out live video and podcasting and all that? Nothing, except for it made for relatable content.
Yes.
It gave us a break, kind of an intermission from the serious stuff, something random. It made me overjoyed to stomp bubbles, and I shared that overjoyment with the crowd out there.
Yes.
And it connected with people, and people started doing it. Our friend Bree Palmer, she was doing a thing where when she was having a bad day, she would go sit in her closet with the lights off in the dark underneath her clothes, and it would be really dim, and she called it something. It was like a closet talk with Bree or whatever.
Yeah.
And people would communicate with her. They'd go sit in their closets and talk back to, do videos to her.
Yeah.
Bree, I had to go. I was thinking of you and I was having a bad day. I went and sat in my closet and it made me feel better.
Right.
Fluff sells. It works. So you don't want to be overly strict with your content, but you just have to have fun.
Yes, no, and I like what I like about your feed. One of the things I really like is you're not afraid to show off bits of your personality. So while I might be scrolling your actual main feed, it looks very professional, very clean, a general theme as you've talked about many times on your podcast. But at the same time, in your story, I'm at the baseball game, you and your kid, or you're sitting in the car detesting Bruce Springsteen on your Sirius radio.
Yeah.
You're letting out pieces of your personality. And I think that's incredibly important. No matter what genre your Instagram profile is, you need to let your personality out. So it's like, well, goddamn, Todd hates Bruce Springsteen. Fine. I like to see these little windows into people's lives because it helps me understand and learn more about the people that I'm following or potentially want to follow.
Well, you know what? That's the whole thing about social. Look, we've been watching movies all our lives. I'm 47 years old, and I've been watching movies. And if you name an actor, Gene Hackman, Robert De Niro, I've seen so many of their movies, I feel like I know them. But guess what? I don't know them. They're totally different in person than they are in the movies that they play. Even if they play a diverse group of people and different personalities and types of people, they're totally different in real life than they are. And so a lot of us, we watch movies and we feel like we know these people, but we really don't. Here's what social media is different, and this is why businesses and people behind the business should be using it, is because when people go to the movies, they go to a movie because it's Robert De Niro.
Yep.
Or they're like, man, I love Robert De Niro movies. I'm going to that one. So they're going to go to the movie because of the actor. Okay. Well, people are going to shop at your store, or people are going to consume your content because they like you, and they can learn a lot more. I feel like I came across really loud there. Social media allows people to really get to know you, and not some random BS personality that you've created. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that are doing that and getting away with it, but people will sniff that out at some point. But you go on there and you talk about, I hate Bruce Springsteen, and then I change the channel and, oh my God, it's Bob Seger. And then I change the channel again and it's The Who. And it's like, my God, I don't have a channel I can go to. These three people, I can't stand any of it.
Yes.
And it resonates. Like my friend Gary here that I'm talking to on this podcast, he picked that a long time ago about my content, and a lot of people do. A lot of people, they send me snaps where they're in their car and they're like, I call Instagram snaps, but they send me stories or private messages with a screenshot with like a frowning emoji, and it's Bruce Springsteen or it's Bob Seger or it's The Who, and they know, and it's just, so this stuff works in driving connections. It allows people who might not ever meet you in person to get to know you, feel like they get to know you. You get to become part of their life, and they like that.
Yes.
We all like that. No, even you could have 1,000 friends and not need another. And there's something about going on social media and connecting with a total stranger on some random things and maybe some big things too, like live video or podcasting or weight loss or art or whatever it is that you're doing on social. They're going to connect with you on the main thing, what your niche or niche or whatever and then they're going to connect with you on the smaller things, what you like to eat, what you like to listen to, where you like to go to vacation. You know, when I saw that Gary goes to Charleston, it was like, dude, we got this connection. We both go to Charleston. We both have family in Charleston.
Yes.
It strengthens the friendship.
Of course. You find
in an
stuff.
instant. And here we're sitting in Lewis Barbecue in downtown Charleston over 4th of July doing a podcast. There will be many more of these to come.
Yes.
And you people out there listening to Gary's podcast, when you're out there doing what Gary and I are doing, you're going to have your connections. Maybe you've got somebody up on the Chesapeake Bay, or maybe in New York City or LA or whatever. You're going to start meeting. I've got friends all over the country, all over the world that I may not ever meet.
Yeah.
That I have as good friendships with them as I do anyone I've met in person.
Right, but that brings me to my next thing. It's like when you started doing social media just a couple of years ago, did you ever imagine that you'd be sitting in a barbecue shop talking, doing a podcast with somebody, or going to like a VidCon and meeting different people? Did you ever imagine that putting yourself out there on social media was going to afford you the opportunity to meet some of these people in person? Is that something you ever imagined?
Well, I don't know that I gave it that kind of thought initially. My big moment where I realized that anything was possible and this is something that can work,
right,
was when I was pretty much exclusively on Snapchat. When I was getting started, it was like 2015, and I was doing Snapchat daily tips. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I wanted to get into video, and I felt like the safest place to get over my fears was Snapchat.
Okay.
Because no one was following me, and I could create content and no one would see it. So if I goofed up or whatever, it just allowed me a place to get in front of the camera and get comfortable. So I started doing these Snapchat tips because I didn't know Snapchat's very counterintuitive, seemingly counterintuitive when you start it up.
Yeah.
But once you understand how things work in Snapchat, it's actually very intuitive. There's just no manual that teaches it to you. You got to figure it out. So when I got started on Snapchat, right away I started teaching people Snapchat. Well, how does a guy who doesn't know how to use Snapchat teach people to use Snapchat? Easy. I had a daily tip.
Yeah.
So every day I had to find out something new on Snapchat that I didn't already know and share it with the world. Well, that began to snowball, and I did almost 500 daily tips before I gave it up.
Yeah.
And I had a guy early on in my tips, in my 30s or 40s, in Australia, who was probably half my age. His name is Josh. And when Josh reached out to me, he said to me, he created a video.
Yep.
And he was in it, and he said, Todd, I just wanted to tell you that I watch you from Australia, and he says, you're the first thing I do every morning. I get my fancy cup of coffee and I sit down and watch your tip every day.
Yeah.
Okay. So this told me that I was appealing to people half my age. I was, he mentioned a few things, like I was amusing the way my delivery, and it was funny, and there were a few things about it, but it taught me a lot about social media, that just this one message from this one person about the power of what I was doing.
Oh, yeah.
That I'm reaching somebody on another continent, 18 hours on a plane away, half my age, with a random tip.
Yep.
When I have no audience at all, and I'm making this guy's day. He's waking up to my content every day.
That's insane.
So it told me that I'm on to something here that the hundreds and thousands of other people are onto and been doing for years before me, but I've found it for myself.
Yeah.
And all of you in Gary's audience who are thinking about, broadcasting and what can you do, I just got started on a whim. I was just like, well, hell, I don't know how to use Snapchat, so who better to teach how to use it? And it worked for me. So you got to think of something for yourself and just think, okay, every day I'm going to teach somebody, I'm going to share with people what I'm having for lunch,
yep.
or a restaurant in my town that I like, or, you're just doing sharing a little something every single day. And that might not be what you do for years to come, but it might lead you in 3 weeks to what you truly do.
Yeah.
You're going to learn things in 3 weeks that you didn't know when you got started. The thing is, you just have to get started. You have to turn on the mic, turn on the phone, whatever. Just start going, and you'll figure it out as you go.
And social media has helped me out a lot personally. I don't know how much, I can't recall offhand how much I've talked about this on this podcast or whatnot, but I used to be in many ways one of the most socially awkward people. You're in a crowded room, maybe you see somebody make eye contact, you look away, or maybe you're not the most talkative one in the room. Doing a podcast, meeting somebody who I know on social media, but otherwise could be a complete stranger. That's something to me is not something I would have done 3-4 years ago. So I think that social media really helps to, if you use it the right way, can really help to strengthen relationships and, more importantly, strengthen you inside and change your mindset on things.
Well, you sound to me like you're somewhat of an introvert, or you have been.
That's
and
accurate.
I am too.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm very, I don't know that I'm socially awkward with strangers. Once I get to know people, I'm not.
Oh yeah.
But I will even go to lengths to not know people sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, okay, I have my crowd, I'm comfortable. And what I've found as an introvert, and somebody who's, in my opinion, an extreme introvert, is that when I'm doing my social stuff, the people in my crowd are interested in what I'm talking about. If I go to a cocktail party and there's no one else there that's doing social media or live video or digital content creation or podcasting or anything like that, I have no one to talk to. There's no one there that really speaks my language. Everybody there is talking about how they hate their day job or this or that, and I'm not speaking their language. But when I turn on the microphone, when I turn on my phone and I get in front of the people that are consuming my content, or I'm listening or interacting with the people that are consuming my content, or I'm consuming their content, then I'm in my crowd. It allows me to open up and have fun and talk about what it is I'm doing. And what I've found is, it's kind of shocking, and Gary, you probably are finding this out too, that the more you do this kind of stuff, the more of an expert you become in it.
Yes.
Just naturally.
Yep.
And it just happens. It's not like something where you bought a book and you learned how to set up this podcast today.
No.
I mean, you grew into this.
Yeah.
And you started at one point. And a lot of people out there, they might see what Gary's doing, or they see what I'm doing with live video, and they're like, well, I can't start there, so they never get started.
Yeah.
I started with a phone and Snapchat. That's where I started. And now I have this massive studio, and I have cameras, and I have equipment, and I have audio, and Gary's the same thing. He probably started with his phone, and it grew from there. And people out there, I love to encourage people out there just to get started, because there's so many of you out there, and it starts with the phone. It starts with something very simple, and as you feel comfortable with what you're doing, you're going to grow naturally, and it compounds very quickly.
Sure.
Into major things.
And by the way, you mentioned Snapchat. In 2018, is that an area we should still be paying attention to, or is that kind of, are we on the end of the wave there?
I haven't given up entirely on Snapchat. I don't use it very often.
Yeah, I don't use it at all. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll do a snap, and when I do, I get my loyal viewers watching it.
Yes.
But Instagram is so powerful, and when you have to, you only have so much time in a day.
Yeah.
You have to really pick and choose. And for me, it's my website, it's my email list, it's Instagram, it's my podcasting, and it's YouTube. I'm making YouTube for the balance of this year a major effort. I might have 5 channels by the end of this year.
Oh shit!
Because really focusing in on specific things on each channel, because video is really where it's at. Video and podcasting isn't dead. If anybody out there's wanting to do a podcast,
we're a whole new era.
Oh
Todd.
yeah, with all this new sound, Google Home and Alexa and everything, it's got new life and it's growing legs in major ways. And again, folks, you just got to pick one thing and get started. For me, it was Snapchat. I got started there, and I do tons of stuff now. And if you look at most of the content creators out there, they started with one thing, got comfortable there, and then they were able to just flourish.
Exactly. Let's talk about kind of where you're at in the next couple of years. I know you mentioned you want to do a couple of YouTube channels. What are some of your goals in the next 3 to 5 years, of where you're going to take your brand and your message? Where do you see yourself?
I just want to, I think more. I don't know that I've thought that far out because things change so quickly.
They do. That's
and
fair.
when you plan that far out, I want to have a digital business that is I could live off my Todd.live presence exclusively. I have another business, online, and it affords me to live, but I'd like to be able to live without that even running. If it stopped, I was still able to support myself. But I do this. A lot of the reason I do this is to build a business. But I do want to help people. I get a tremendous joy from helping people learn how to podcast, how to Instagram, how to do all these things that I teach. But I just want it to grow. I want a much larger audience. I want I'd love to have a business and I'm getting lots of referrals, and I'm just making people happy, and I'm changing life. I want people to look at me and say, I listened to your podcast with Gary Cantrell, and you changed my life today.
Yeah.
And you changed my life. And if I could have 1,000 people tell me that, or 10,000 people tell me that, or 25,000 people tell me that, that's better than any kind of financial freedom or because let's face it, folks, if you have 1,000 people tell you that you've changed their life, then your finances are probably going to be squared away anyway, naturally, just by virtue of what you're doing.
Sure.
So changing lives. It's just changing lives. If I can get people using Instagram confidently, podcasting confidently, doing live video confidently, that's changing lives.
Well, speaking of the referral, I want to use this moment as we close up to let people know that they absolutely, especially Instagram, because I feel like that's where most of my audience is. Looking at the traffic, that's where the audience is. You got to check out Grammar School. You've got a couple of 100 episodes already, and I think most of the stuff is evergreen. There might have been a few where you've talked about, in the news this week there's this, but in the grand scheme, I think all of it's evergreen. And for people that want to learn more, that want to dive more on Instagram, they need to do themselves justice and listen to the Grammar School podcast. So as we wrap up here, tell people everywhere you want them to find you, what you want them to check out, because they're probably listening to this saying, oh my God, who is this guy now? I need to figure out, I need to dive a little deeper. So tell them where to find you.
Well, I hope, Gary, thank you for the kind words. Todd.live is my website. Todd, Todd.live. You can spell it Todd.live if you prefer the European version. They both go to my website. I bought both domains and they were costly, believe me. On a yearly basis, they're costly.
Yes.
But you can go to Todd.live. I highly encourage you to sign up to my email list. There's some freebies, landing pages if you want some freebies. Just email me, Todd@Todd.live, and I can give you the links to where you can sign up for my email list and get some freebies, some downloads on Instagram Live, that sort of thing. Or you can just go to the page and just sign up. I don't send a lot of emails to my list, but everything is good stuff. The other thing is, the very best place to reach me if you want to chit chat or just say hello is Instagram. There's a private message feature in Instagram. You simply go to the home screen and touch that little paper airplane in the top right, or if you've got messages that you didn't know about, it might have a number there, but you touch that and you type in Todd.live in there and you can send me a private message. It can be video, text, audio, whatever. I'm very responsive to people on Instagram. I love to talk to people on Instagram.
Just don't tag them in your meme.
Yeah, don't tag me in your meme. I tend to block people that tag me. I've had some trolls happen because of that, and that's to be expected. But
I'm gonna post a picture later. Don't block me.
No.
Todd.
If I'm in your picture, you tag me all you want. But if you tag me to like your lunch, you're probably gonna get blocked. But my website and my Instagram, those are the places that are best to find me. Of course, Gary already mentioned my podcasts, and if you're on my email list, you're gonna know what I'm up to. And I share a lot of my life and a lot of good learning in the emails. I've actually been ramping that up in 2018, the email list.
Yep.
I've been kind of ignoring it for years, but it's so important because as we talked about before this podcast, Gary and I were having lunch here at Lewis. Your website. I think what you said that Blake was talking about this the other day. Blake Croft.
Full credit to Blake.
You've got to have your website up and running and use it because any of these other platforms can pull the rug out of under your feet, change the rules, whatever, and you're left hanging. And you want people to go to the website and be part of your website community. So
it's easy to go on Instagram and have a profile that says entrepreneur, CEO. Post a couple of Photoshop fake photos of Ferraris, but at the end of the day, you need to have your own website. You need to have your own presence.
Absolutely. And I want a big shout out to you, Gary. I've been following you. I've listened to your podcast.
Thank you.
I've listened to your journey with your family and dealing with your father. And I've listened to those podcasts.
Oh boy.
I actually can relate to that to a lot of degree.
Yeah.
I've watched your journey as far as hitting the gym and making changes in your health. And I think that what you do is phenomenal. I mean, I think a lot, when I found you, I don't think any of the people in my crowd were friends with you yet. It was just like, who's this guy, Gary? You came across, and I started interacting with you, and I realized that you're bringing it every day, and that's why I wanted to connect with you. You've been on my pod. In fact, folks, Gary's been on one of my podcasts if you want to look it up on Grammar School. We did a 1 hour, but I think what you do is absolutely amazing. I'm just extremely thrilled and honored to have you as a friend, that you've brought your equipment out and met me at Lewis here in Charleston to do a show.
And thanks to Lewis for not being cool and not giving us trouble about doing this podcast.
We're taking one of their tables on a highly busy day, but they've been very gracious. We ate here. We spent good money, but they also were listening to us and heard us talking about the food. So they got some good promo. If you're in Charleston, you got to come to Lewis and check it out.
Whether brisket is dynamite.
Yeah, it's killer. But Gary, you're knocking it out of the ballpark. I'm honored to be on your podcast, and I'm honored to have you as a friend.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you for doing the podcast, and enjoy the rest of your vacation, man. It's a hell of a place to be.
You as well.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Take care.